A very warm welcome, everybody, to the latest round of the 24H series. A very warm welcome, everybody, and indeed, welcome to the 24 Hours of Barcelona, the annual event here in Catalonia, with the first day of three, essentially, with qualifying to take place in the next few moments. This is for the two different categories, the TCEs and the GTE series, and across three different sessions as well. But a reminder of where this round of the championship sits. We're right at the end of the European segment of the season. They've been 5 races, but we started way back in January with the first flyaway event at Dubai in the middle of January, and then the following week at the single event at the 6 Hours of Abu Dhabi. Then the European season began in Italy, in Mugello, onward to Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. The 12 Hours of Hockenheimring took us to Germany, and this is the second of 24-hour races. The first close to the start of July, in not far away, Portimao in the south of Portugal, and we're now in the opposite end, if you like, of the Iberian area, northeast Spain for Barcelona. And Kuwait is the brand new date for your diary, replacing Sebring, which of course was originally planned for the end of the year, but we're very, very excited now to be going back to the Middle East for the 12 hours, the first ever 12 hours of Kuwait. It's me, Johnny Palmer, and Joe Bradley looking after matters from above and the main commentary box, but down beneath us in the pit lane is Diana Binks to give us a flavour of what's going on before qualifying. Di.
Yes, everyone, welcome to the pit lane here in Barcelona as everything gets underway for the TCE qualifying session, as Johnny just mentioned there. I'm at the pit in end of the pit lane. It's quite a long pit lane here in Barcelona. If you could see all the way up there, that's where I'll be this weekend, running up and down this pit lane. TCE category guys are all getting ready. AC Motorsports just behind me are doing some fine tuning to their car, which is just behind. You can't quite see it. They're getting ready to get the driver in there to get out on this session when it goes live. Now, 3 drivers per team. Will have 3 qualifying sessions to run. There'll be a break of a few minutes between each so they can have a driver change, and then the representative time at the end will dictate who takes pole. So I'll keep you posted to the news that's happening down here. 28 degrees and rising, not too many clouds in the sky and not much wind, so it's pretty hot.
And at times you're going to be fighting that pit lane entry buzzer as well, which will be going off at several occasions over, well, the next 3 sessions, certainly. Really nice rumble in the background of cars making their way to the end of pit road in readiness for a 15-minute session, as well as qualifying is about to go live. But of course, all of us here at the Radio Show Limited network of channels, and those associated with Creventic as well, are taking part in this event, hopefully enjoying it, but with heavy hearts because of the news yesterday from the UK of the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, died at Balmoral Castle at age 96 after reigning for an incredible 70 years. So the mood around the camp, Joe Bradley, is a little bit sombre, understandably so, and I suppose countries that I didn't necessarily recognise the magnitude of what the Queen meant to places like Germany, to here in Spain, to Italy as well. You know, she was, yes, the Queen of the Commonwealth and the United Kingdom, but, you know, it was far more reaching than that, in fact.
Afternoon, Johnny. Afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I've got to say I've been blown away by the reaction I've seen here in Barcelona and from all of our European friends. And she was described to me by one of our Dutch colleagues as she wasn't just the British Queen, she was the global Queen.
Yeah.
And I'm getting emotional saying that, Johnny. It's hard for us to get a perspective on it, being British ourselves. She's our Queen, but seeing the respect that has been presented to us from other countries represented here in Barcelona is quite mind-blowing and been quite overwhelming, quite touching. At very sad times, I've got to say.
So a lot of sport within the United Kingdom cancelled for the weekend, but Creventic very keen for this event here in Barcelona to continue, and therefore, you know, we will put a brave face on matters and keep a close eye on what's going on back at our home. And I'm sure you can appreciate us and fellow Brits are feeling it a little bit. It's a weird scenario. Certainly, there are not many people that will have known another monarch in this day and age. I mean, some will have done, of course, but we're getting to a generation now. To have been on the throne for 70 odd years is never been done before, and we now have a king in the UK as well, King Charles III.
Yes, King Charles III. Long live the king.
So let's move towards the session, which is now live, and we will be getting towards that in a moment or two. We are slightly behind time at the moment, so a chance on the live stream, and indeed perhaps right now, to chat about some cars that we don't always get the opportunity to look at. This is a further extension, in fact, on the live stream of the Speed Euro Series qualifying, and a little bit later on then qualifying for the 24 hours of Barcelona will be taking place. I'll remind you that in the 24-hour event there are essentially two races in one that have been held throughout the course of the season for GT Series and the TCE Series, and categories within that as well. And the new style of qualifying for 2022 has been that 3 drivers will take part in separate qualifying sessions, each of 15 minutes. The first of those 3 sessions is designated as AM drivers only. The next 2, also of 15 minutes each, you can use whichever driver you wish. Now, there are some lineups, as many as 5 drivers, that are all AMs, and therefore, whether they've drawn lots or had a little discussion behind, maybe rock, paper, scissors, to decide who's going to be taking part in qualifying. But that has all had to be put back a little bit because of our late running in the day. 3.5 minutes or so to go of this Speed Euro Series qualifying. And we can look forward to some races from these cars later in the weekend as well. In fact, the support package is crammed full of various different events through the course of the weekend. We have as many as 48 Caterhams here this weekend, which represents one of our support races. This, the Speed Euro Series, and also the Alpine Europa Cup, which I remember has raced here at Barcelona in the past as well. So those choosing to come and spectate here at the famous circuit de Catalunya, Barcelona, will have a real feast of offering, including the 24 hours, which will be starting at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Now, that is quite a late adjustment to start time. Don't let that catch you out. It's a 1 p.m. start local, when, well, about a week ago, it was going to be a 2 o'clock start. So I just want to mark your card so that you're not joining us an hour later than planned. That's the view, though, if you are joining us on the live stream. And that's really the best way to experience our coverage this weekend of turn number 3. There are very few, if any, corner names around this place. We will be referring, unfortunately, to a lot of turn 1, turn 3, turn 7, when I always like to try and weave in some corner names where possible. Maybe Joe and I will make some up along the way.
We've been there before, Johnny.
Yeah, that is true.
Nick and I did that last week. And I'm surprised because the Circuit of Catalunya has got such a rich history. It's at the home of the Spanish Grand Prix for many, many years now, back to the early 90s. So I'm surprised that they haven't acquired names, historical themed names, because there's such a rich history here in Spain.
So we'll continue to enjoy the tail end of the Speed Euro Series and look forward to qualifying starting. But in the meantime, let's head to Diana Binks. Who have you found?
I found Charles Dawson from AC Motorsport, just getting ready to go out on track. I think, Charles, you thought you were going out a little sooner than we are, so we have a few minutes to fill. Just tell me how you're feeling now going into this qualifying session, and what sort of conversation you've had with the other drivers to sort of plan your strategy attack.
Sorry, just repeat that one again.
What's your feeling going into qualifying, and how have you planned your strategy with which driver goes at what point?
We had a bit of a difficult start to today. Our rear brakes locked in practice, so we didn't get any running this morning, which is a bit frustrating. But qualifying, Stefan's going first, and then I'm going second session, and then we got Vincent going first session. So it's a good, strong lineup. We got Matthew here as well, so he's joining us tomorrow. We'll just see how it goes. To be honest with you, though, here the tyre degradation, I don't I don't think qualifying pace is going to be all too important. So I think the most important thing is going to be tyre deck tomorrow.
Obviously, I can see him behind the wheel of the Audi there. Looking at the nature of this circuit here in Barcelona, what are the characteristics of that car on this track, and what are the most advantages that you've got?
Yeah, so I think, to be honest with you, advantages-wise, good question. Trying to work that one out still. Turn 3 is really brutal on the front-wheel drive. You've really got to watch it through there, especially early on with the tyres. And then, again, kind of turn 12, the long right-hander again, there's a lot of load on the front left. So, you know, I think as well here, the Gen 1 Audi is a little bit of a disadvantage in terms of pace against the Gen 2. I drove the Gen 2 in Portimao, swapped back here with AC Motorsport. So I think it's quite a long straight as well. So, but to be honest with you, I think we're just going to rely on managing the tyre degradation, getting good race pace. That's what we were concentrating on yesterday. So we're not going to compete with the Gen 2 TCR cars. Gen 2 TCR cars in qualifying. So, you know, let's just, you know, obviously we want to do some good laps now. But we're not too worried where we end up, and the long games tomorrow. So. Yeah.
Charles, we talk a lot about the tyres and obviously how you have to manage those tyres and the drop-off point of the tyres. Can you explain how that feels when you're behind the wheel, when it's happening, and what you then do about it?
Yeah, sure. So here, I think, well, the first kind of 5 laps, just really carefully manage them, especially through turn 3, which I mentioned before. I think you notice it more there. So really coming out of turn 3, if you're not careful with putting on the power, you get a lot of understeer. Which just costs you a lot of time. And trying to, again, if you don't manage the tyres, if you overheat them, especially the front, well, obviously the front tyres of the TCR car, just a lot of power and steer on exit of corners coming out of turn 5. And coming out of the final chicane as well, you just really struggle. So it's just, again, it's just a learning curve for me, and, you know, having people like Stefan and Vincent in the team, you know, guys who've done, you know, between them 50 years plus of racing. So, you know, they know how to do this well, and listening to them is what I've been trying to do over the last few days. And that's all they've been saying is look after the tyres in some specific corners. So, yeah. But no, I mean, yeah, in terms of how it feels in the car, just mainly, yeah, understeering on the exits and through high speed. So.
Well, Stefan, we just had to move out the way there as Stefan came out in the car. Didn't want to get run over this early. What is it about these 24-hour races that you love?
I think, it's a good question. I think just the sheer sense of teamwork. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it is genuinely, because it is. I did my first few sprint races a couple of months ago, and don't get me wrong, it's really good fun. Half an hour, you've got to put it all on the line. You know, you get a result there and then. But there's something special that these longer races have, which is kind of hard to put a finger on it. There's just an atmosphere, and I think it is. It's just the teamwork and the graft, and everyone involved is, you know, really putting their effort in. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, that's, I think, there's something special in that, in sense of camaraderie, I guess. Yeah.
Charles, thank you so much for chatting to us. Go well this weekend. No doubt we'll catch up with you over the weekend. And Johnny, it's back to you, but you did mention that buzzer, which is going off constantly. Thank God I've got my headset on.
Yeah, scream when it gets annoying, won't you, Di? I was here a couple of weekends ago. And
is that Di's personal buzzer?
Maybe it is, yes. Yeah, perhaps, who knows. But yeah, it does have a habit of not relenting, particularly, I think, over the next, well, nearly 2 hours, because you think about the number of cars that are going to have to go out onto track for the first 15 minutes, then back in again for a 5-minute down period, another 15 minutes, and then we do it all over again for a third time as well. Charles Dawson, by the way, in the 188 AC Motorsport Audi RS3 LMS DSG, that's the DSG box. He hasn't done a great deal of Creventic racing previously. He was at Portimao and he did Abu Dhabi in January, but wasn't at Dubai, for instance. So I think most of his racing's been done at club level. There was mention there of Vincent, that's Vincent Rademacher, no less, who is a pro in that car. Mathieu Detry, the semi-pro, and Stefan Perrin also talked about in that interview, who's another AM, as is Charles. So it's a 4-driver lineup in 188.
He mentioned something there, Johnny, that's going to be more and more significant as we get into the race. he mentioned that his teammates have been mentoring him about looking after the tyres here at the Circuit of Catalunya. And in my latest column for the Race magazine, available online at the 24hseries.com, I mentioned that very thing, and it's mainly turn 3. If you are familiar with the track here that we're racing on this weekend, off the main start-finish straight, you turn through a right-left, and then the next right seems to go on forever. And it's a very, very sweeping right. It causes problems in all the racing that we see here. You were here 2 weeks ago with the LMS. It would have been the same deal for them. It's the same deal for the F1 guys.
Yep.
Even more so a big deal for the TCR cars that have now been given the green light, and we can start the first segment of this qualifying session. And that's because you're loading up that left front wheel that is steering and driving, and that corner just goes on forever. And if you're not careful, if you lean on that tyre too much, it's going to overheat, especially in these conditions. 28 degrees ambient, track temperature towards 40 degrees. We'll get that confirmed from one of our Hankook tyre engineers. But during the race, and especially in daylight hours, it's going to be the drivers that can manage their tyres to the end of the stint to stop, especially in the TCR class, and stop that left front blistering, because once it blisters, once it goes off, you are then understeering through every single right-hander on this track.
Yeah, and it becomes very much chasing your tail then, because as you lose a little bit of tyre performance, you're then chasing it, and it gets worse and worse, and it's something that you've got to stay on top of, particularly as for the TCR cars, particularly, their stints are going to be pretty long. You know, they're always got good fuel consumption compared to certainly a GT3 car. So it's about tyre life and how long you can extend that window rather than when the car runs out of fuel. You might well see cars pitting just because they've got no grip. The first two cars out, this fantastic paint scheme from, are they the BBR cars? They are. I'm asking you don't know the answer, do you?
I do.
Oh, you do? Okay,
Yeah.
You're smiling, you're grinning at me.
Yeah, because underneath the BBR, if you peel that back,
it says
Monlau.
Monlau.
It says Monlau.
Yes.
Where are we now?
We are in Spain. We're in Catalunya, to
We're
be
at their
specific.
home track.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, the Monlau team is derived from the university here in Barcelona, and it's a motorsport engineering course, and there's a lot of the crew in that team that are actually students of motorsport engineering at the in the Monlau team, and they've been renamed this year as BBR because of the sponsorship deal with the Thai drivers that they've got lined up. Both of the cars, the 158, the 159. If you look at the championship table, you'll see those cars feature very, very highly indeed. And each and every one of those drivers try and find a weak link in any of those cars, either of those cars' driver lineup, Johnny, and there isn't one.
Yeah.
Their
Agreed.
lap times are so close together, and that's why they've been doing so well this season.
Well, BBR and actually Monlau have great success at this event in previous years, so they certainly should be looked at as a very strong contender to take victory within the touring car element of the entry. There is a Thai, the flag of Thailand, represented on the B pillar of each of the cars, but the yellow, the red and the black of Spain, and particularly Catalunya, this part of the world, emblazoned on both of those cars. Very different, in fact, because we've got a Cupra TCR and we've got a Cupra Leon Competition, which is the 158 car. And drivers that have been selected in this all-AM session, and actually a slight adjustment, I was rounding things up. Previously this year, they have been 3 times 15 minutes. I think because this is a shorter track that we go to than normal, it's possibly the shortest, I need to check that, 4.6 kilometres. So the sessions are now just 12 minutes in length, and that means you've got less time, of course, to put your time in for each of these events. Previously, we have been to Portimao, which is a similar length, actually. So Portimao, 4,592 metres. Barcelona is 4.6 kilometres, so marginally longer than Portimao, but just the 12 minutes to play with. Then the checkered flag will fly. If you beat the checkered flag, you can squeeze one more lap out of the session, but then everyone will pit and will have to do a driver change.
Why aren't those BBR cars rushing into this? I'll tell you why, Johnny. Because if they rush too too fast into bringing these tyres up to optimum, they'll start to overheat. And another, perhaps really, really important factor of this qualifying process is the teams aren't allowed to change tyres. So all three drivers are out on the same set of tyres. So by the time what in a lot of respects your sort of primary, your superstar driver, your pro driver is out in the final section of this qualifying session, he's on the worst tyre. He's on the worst life of the tyre. So the tyre's worn out then by then. And perhaps more so, and it's exaggerated as I've described with regards to the front-wheel drive cars in the TCR class. They are nursing these tyres to the end of this qualifying, the three segments of the qualifying session.
I'm going to be brave here and attempt to pronounce the drivers that are driving the BBR machines. As Joe has already said, real talents within them, and it's fantastic that Monlau and BBR are tapping into driver talent from that part of the world, Thailand. So in the 159, which is the Cupra TCR, we have Dakathorn Puakarawut, I think is, well, that's certainly all the syllables in the right area. I don't know where the emphasis is, and we need to probably talk to Decathorn to get an official pronunciation on his name. And then teammate is Passarit Promsobat. Now, those are the two Thai drivers that have been selected for the opening portion of qualifying. We also have out there the treble 4 BMW M4 from Senkier Motorsport, and it's Petter Svantner who's been selected as their opening qualifying driver. Stefan Perra, who we've already chatted about with AC Motorsport, driving the Audi RS3 LMS. We've got Atlas BX Motorsports with a Mercedes AMG GT4, and it's Takyun Yang driving that, the 403. Jonas Holmgaard in the Holmgaard Motorsport Cupra Leon Competition, so similar machine to that of BBR. There's a bloke out there called Matt Neal. I've heard of him from certainly previous years in the British Touring Car Championship.
He's done a bit of racing, hasn't he?
Just a little bit from time to time.
In front-wheel drive cars as well.
Fair bit of it has been in front-wheel drive, if not all. And he's brought two of his lads with him, I understand, as well, to be driving.
Are we really all that old that Matt Neal is racing with his sons?
Yeah.
Great to see that.
So car 138, the Simpson Motorsport entry. Ricky Coomber, I think a late addition to that team to make it a quintet. Another man with great BTCC pedigree, James Kay, is in that car, together with Matt Neal, Henry Neal, who's a semi-pro like his dad, and Will Neal, who is an AM in the Audi RS3 LMS DSG that they have, car 138. We've already had nearly 8 minutes of this session, by the way, and the 116 car of Marlon Menden has just gone fastest with a 158.316. So that's an absolute best when you total the times up. Most of the time found in that final sector, though, the Audi RS3 for Wolf Power Racing. No strangers to the top of a timing chart. I'll remind you that this isn't for pole position outright in TCE, because what we'll be doing is taking the times from this session, adding them to the session 2 times, and then adding the total to the session 3 times, and dividing by 3. So you get a 3-session average, effectively, from 3 different drivers, and that will position the cars on the grid for tomorrow, and indeed Sunday's 24 Hours of Barcelona, the Trofeo Fermi Velez, to give it its official name. There's a slow 116 car. Marlon Menden is backing off. I think that's just to find a bit of track space, in fact, out there. And there's now a new name to the top of the charts, which is car 802. You're going to struggle to find that on the entry list, because what we haven't yet told you, there's another little bit of a quirk to this weekend. There are additional cars in the race for the 24 hours, but only for the first 120 minutes. So yes, you've got that right, folks. There's going to be a 2-hour race within a 24-hour race, which is for the Iberian GT4 Championship, which probably has a more official name than that, but they are all GT4 cars. And the Lemma Racing offering, which is a Mercedes AMG GT4, has just done a 158.281 and goes top of the session because of that. So that car, clearly we need to mention, but from a championship point of view, it's not a Creventic car, it's not a 24H series car. it's actually the Iberian GT4 Championship taking advantage of some track time. And a little bit like Silverstone in, I want to say 2017, but really should look that up, when at Silverstone there was a 12-hour race held within a 24-hour race for prototypes, and they waived the end of that race whilst the 24 hours continued into the night. Well, there's going to be an orange flag waved once we get to the 2-hour mark, which will bring the GT4, individual GT4 race to a finish. But everybody else associated with the 24-hour series will continue on into hour 3 and beyond. I hope I've made that as clear as possible to you. Marlon Menden's already parked the Wolf Power Racing Audi RS3. So that car has done a 158.316, and they reckon that's about as much as the tyres can give now. And it has a buffer zone of a couple of the Iberian cars between it and the next offering, which is the Passerit Promsabat BBR car, the Cupra TCR from Monlau/BBR, car 159, second fastest of the 24H series cars. But SMC Motorsports McLaren's really smart 570S GT4s. SMC have brought 2 of those to the party, and we'll get to enjoy the noise of those cars and the pace of them in the early phase of the 24 hours of Barcelona. So down into the chicane will go the Viper Niza entry, which is another Cupra. Douglas Koo driving the 165 car, and Koo of Malaysia heading through the right-hander, which is the final corner on the circuit, and down what is quite a long straight here. Straight in terms of the steering wheel, but actually the elevation change is notable as you head past the famous Barcelona scoring tower, which is almost way above the highest tier of the grandstand, and then decelerate as quickly as possible into an awkward first corner. You want to try and be single file where possible through there. Then the switch back through 2, much longer lingering right-hander, which really does punish the tyres on a front-wheel drive car that Douglas has got. Then it's the front left which will take the pounding, then onto the brakes again into turn number 4. Qualifying, by the way, has now, well, in 3 more seconds will come to an end, and there'll be a checkered flag waved. Has anybody else improved recently? Yeah, Jorge Belloc Ruiz has just done his best time of the session to pop up into 5th position when you combine the extra GT4 cars, but 3rd place for the championship regulars. So Marlon Menden's time not going to be beaten, it would appear, for Wolf Power Racing in the Audi RS3. Decathorn Pukakarurat has gone 2nd fastest now in the 158 car. So Pukakarurat in the Leon Competition leaving it pretty late to leapfrog his teammate Promsabat in the Cupra. He's dropped down to 4th position, but the rail equipe by Totcar Sport Cupra now in there in 3rd, and it's been interesting actually to observe these times coming quite late on in the session, despite what we were saying about tyres. Actually approaching this in a measured way has meant that there was some meat on the tyres in the closing stages of the 12 minutes, Joe.
And what that'll do, Johnny, is it'll give them an optimised car for the 2nd and also the 3rd drivers. You know what, though? I'm pretty sure, I mean, we were focusing on the number 158 and the 159 and how they went about their qualifying session. I'm pretty sure that all of the TCR runners will be, again, driving their cars with consideration to tyre life. And yes, they'll want to get their tyres. The key, I suppose, is getting those rears up to an optimum temperature so that you're not sliding the rear end around and the actual, you know, you're not losing time by going sideways. And we saw pretty much every competitor out there just bringing the tyres in nice and gently, not overheating them towards the end of this 12-minute run. And hence they're able to give their teammate for the 2nd segment of their qualifying session a tyre that's got a bit of life in it. Of course, the key is that third lap time that you're going to achieve, because you need a tyre to give you a pretty good lap time to bring all those lap times together to give you a good average.
And the thing that I had to remind myself at the start of the day is that you stay on the same set of Hankook, so it's all about playing the long game. As as it is actually in the race stints as well. So the 116 car is in. Marlon Mendon doing the fastest time. It was a 1:58.316. Let's head straight to Diana for reaction.
A great reaction in the garage from Marion and the team and the crew behind him here. A good start to this weekend with that time in qualifying 1.
Yeah, I'm very happy with that time. The team made a great job. Car is laying perfectly for qualifying. We had a lot of struggle with the setup the last days, but I think they did everything right to get us on pace.
How much did you change on the setup going into qualifying from what you learned the other day?
Quite a lot, because we started on Wednesday for testing here, and yeah, we had some, I think, weather changes, and the track temperature is much higher now. So we had quite a lot of changes for now, but they did a great job.
And how are conditions out on the track at this early stage?
In qualifying, you don't care so much about everything around you, so we had a lot of grip, so the time was good. So yeah, it was perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, Marlon, very happy with that indeed. Wolf Power Racing, no stranger to a pole position. Wolf Power, in my mind, more associated with VW Golfs, actually, but they can make an Audi RS3 go rapidly as well. And it's dependent, I suppose, on who their customers are at any one time.
Well, they were a joint team with Autorama, remember?
That's
that
a very
was
good point.
You know, the championship-winning operation there was when the two teams came together. What 2022 has seen the Wolf Power aspect of that team split and do their own operation, and that's what we've been seeing this year.
Yeah, but it's all within the TCR
Yes, yeah,
world,
both,
and
yeah.
and you know, I suppose being a VAG group car, then there are similarities as well. But it's the booted RS3, so you know the aero on that car is going to be pretty different. But clearly, it's in the sweet spot right now. But it really depends on the condition, mainly of the rubber beneath the wheels, that Marlon Mendon is going to hand over to his teammates. But I'll remind you that in that Audi, Jasmine Preissig, Rob Huff, and Ivars Valers. So we could have, well, I reckon Rob's probably going to be held back for the final session. You could use him in the middle one. There are no restrictions for session 2 and session 3. It's only the first session that was all AM drivers.
The way we've seen qualifying go ahead is you've got the most experienced pro in the car last, because they're the drivers that can get the best out of a tyre that's already been used. Give the brand new set to your AM driver. It's hard to pick certainly the driver lineup that we've mentioned in the BBR cars, and once again BBR cars first out of the pit lane to start this second section of the TCE Touring Car Endurance Series. This part of qualifying is all about. Remember, with the 24-8 series, you always get 2 races in one, with 2 race series going ahead. The Touring Car Endurance Series is one, which is what we're watching now, and then there's the GT Endurance Series is what we'll see them all come together and race over 24 hours tomorrow.
And also to remind you, as far as the championship is concerned, in the TCR division, it's a fight right now between BBR and Wolf Power Racing, but the gap's quite large. It is 28 points, and it's actually more of a case of a fight for second position, therefore, because remember, in a 24-hour race, you get points at half distance. So at the 12-hour mark, there'll be points awarded. And last time at Portimao, 10 points for leading at the 12-hour mark, 9 points for second place, and it was for third position, 8 points, which was scored by BBR. When you get to the finish and you're still leading, i.e. you win, it's a further 19 points. So at actually TCR level, there's a potential of 29 points on offer, and that's crucial because the gap is 28 coming to this event between BBR, the 159 car, which is the Competition machine. No, it's not, it's the TCR car, I should say, and the 116 Wolf Power Racing car, which at the moment has a provisional pole, but it is very provisional because now Jasmine Preissig has taken charge of this one, the Wolf Power Racing car. So similarly looking to AC Motorsport, but very different entities. We've got Kantandi Kusuri in the 158 Leon Competition, the BBR car. Martin Vedel Mortensen takes charge of the Holmgard Motorsport Leon Competition as well. change of driver in the Cupra TCR, the rail equipe by Top Car Sports offering, and that's Alba Cano Ramirez who takes charge of that. Tanart Satyen Terakul for BBR, and their Cupra is now on the 159. So they're the championship leaders, 78 points. They won at Hockenheim, they won at Portimao, they won at Mugello. So they can often go well in whether it's a 12-hour or a 24-hour race. Their only downside result was Spa, where they still finished in the top 5. But whether you have to weave in a drop score into this as well. And at the moment they would drop Spa because they only scored 12 points in Belgium.
I've got to say a big welcome back to the driver that's currently at the wheel of the 138. That's the Simpson Motorsport car. This is, of course, the car that has the Neil family in it, and it's Ricky Coomber that we say welcome back to. He's been a bit of a stalwart for in the 24H series, usually campaigning his Honda Civic. However, Ricky hasn't been competing with us for a few years now, and we've gradually drawn him back in. And it's great to see him in that Simpson Motorsport Audi. I think that deal just came together quite late in the day, and I'm pretty sure we can get Ricky. Ricky, of course, class winners, championship class winners in the past. Off the top of my head, I'd have to dig very deep to see exactly when that was, but I do remember him picking up a massive trophy at Spa one year at the presentation. It's just great to see a driver that's familiar to the series coming back and dipping his toe again. Maybe we'll get him back with his own car again soon.
Well, he's a real enthusiast, whatever he is driving, and yeah, it's been a while. Well, I have him down in a dynamic motorsport Audi for the Abu Dhabi 6 hours, but this will certainly be his first 24 for a little while. Did do Dubai last year, so at the start of 2021, he was in the RKC, which is his company, RKC ZRT Audi RS3. So been doing quite a bit in TCR, but certainly by no means a full season entry, only his second Creventic race of the season. We've had nearly 4.5 minutes of another 12-minute slice, and the PRE, which denotes Preissig, the first 3 letters of Jasmine Preissig in car 116, goes fastest to the top with a 158.521. Although interestingly, there's an absolute best there for Kantandi Kasuri, which might have been taken away from him. Is that a lap that's been done for track limits?
That's quite considerably quicker, Johnny, so it does have track limits written all over it. A 58.183 is currently showing in purple on the timing screen. However, that's not showing as his qualifying time. So that 58.183 is a little bit dubious. Remember, though, as we get into this session, it's not necessarily the out-and-out lap. It's an aggregate of both. So that 58.183 stands as the quickest time we've seen so far. So that isn't a track limits thing. That is the reason it's second is because the aggregate of the first session time, the 59.3, and now add in the 58.1, and that puts them in second place, of course. Let's get our heads back around this qualifying.
It's all right. Our timing system, and quite rightly so, is configured to the average rather than the times that are being put into this individual session, and I need to remember that. So actually the fastest car in the session so far is the 158 BBR, but when you link it together with the time already produced in car 158, which was by Decatorn Puakrawat, that was slightly better. Yeah, it gives you a second fastest time, because how far off are they? Actually 6/10 away. No, that's because Lemma Racing's Mercedes has gone, so it's less than that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's much narrower indeed, 0.2 of a second. What's changed is that the Lima Racing Mercedes from the Iberian GT4 Championship goes to the top, and that's probably what we would have expected, actually. You've got GT4 cars qualifying versus TCRs. Generally speaking, the GT4s will be quicker.
Just to repeat and remind everybody, Johnny, that car that's currently heading the timing screen isn't part of the 24-hour race and isn't part of the TCE Championship. So fundamentally, it's Preissig and the Wolf Power Racing Audi that currently, with an average time, both lap times averaged at a 58.284 in comparison to Kantadi Kasiri in the BBR car, the 158, currently second. Their average time, a 58.771. Now that's gone up. That was Preissig's gone quicker, because that was on 0.2 of a second difference. It's now gone out about half a second difference there. So let's see if the 58 can go a little bit quicker. They need to get a little bit more time to narrow that gap. Third in the TCR class is the Martin Vettel Mortensen Holmgard Motorsport Cupra Leon, and they've got an average time of a 59.6. So a little bit massive difference there between the first and second place cars in this qualifying session to the rest of the field. So they really are out and out there.
Pretty close between the two championship protagonists. 159 is the BBR, the BBR Cupra, I should say, and the 116 Audi. So they're not together on the timing screen on the averages. Tanot Satyanterakool needing to find a bit more pace. He's done a 159.7. No, he's not. He's done a 2 minutes 0.1 as his best. Teammate, the AM driver's gone marginally quicker. They're almost holding one another up here. And I don't know whether that's deliberate tactics from Jasmine Preissig. I'm sure it's not. She's actually trying to buy herself a bit of track space as well. But the nature of that chicane towards the end of the lap means that if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you just end up in a queue. And that's going to mean that your route through turn 16, the final corner of the track, is massively affected by that. You've got to be careful that you buy yourself enough track space before the chicane, really, so it doesn't let them bleed into your next quick lap. Jasmine Preissig into the pit lane, I notice. Also, Kantanti Kusuri coming down pit road in the number 158 BBR Cupra as 138 Audi. And the 138 Audi is Ricky Kumba in the Simpson Motorsport RS3. Currently, now where in class when you take out 1, 2, 3 GT4s, that will make him 5th. No, it won't. 4, 6,
he's going to be
8th. He'll be 8th, won't he?
He's 7th.
Yes.
That's the class position.
Thank you. So 7th in TCR. There is a GT4 from the Creventic Championship ahead of them, which is the Senkier Motorsport BMW M4 with Richard Gonda at the wheel of the treble 4. 813 is another Mercedes. No, it's not. That's the Ginetta, I beg your pardon, of 813 Jota Motorsport and the Ginetta G50 GT4 for the Iberian Supercars Endurance Series. And normally, by the way, their weekends consist of 2 races and 2 qualifying sessions per weekend. But for the first time this weekend, the series running for these 2 hours together alongside the 24H Series cars for the first segment of it. So they're calling their race the 2 hours of Barcelona in amongst the 12 to 24 hours, which is the official Trofeo Fermi Velez.
We'll try and keep our fingers on the many pulses that are permeating out of on track.
There are a lot of plates spinning here, folks.
I think the significant thing about what's happening now is that most of our TCR runners have pitted, and they pitted on about 2 minutes and 40 seconds remaining. So pointless plodding round and round and trying to get that free lap or that clear lap. So the majority of our TCR runners. Charles Dawson stays out. Ricky Kumba has just brought the number 138 in, and another car, the Hartai Young Atlas BX Motorsport Mercedes, that's in the GT4 class, currently 2nd in that, currently 16th overall. That car stays out. So the thing is, this session, minute to run on the clock. However, everyone has decided that's enough for now. Let's save the tyres and let's get prepared for the 3rd and final driver in this qualifying session.
So the top 6 cars within the 24H Series qualifying have now pitted and said that's enough, even though there's still 45 seconds left on the clock. And Kantadi Kusuri, who's looking like he's going to be top within this session, his car will be 2nd overall on the average times, is now with Diana Binks.
He certainly is, but he's just run off to have a chat with the other driver before they go back out for this session. But Kantadi has rejoined me to have a chat now. Are you happy with the times you've just posted there?
Not really happy that much, but it's not too bad. P1 for my stint and P2 for my teammates, so it's quite good. So let's see the next one, see how it should be.
Does it make it a bit easier in these qualifying sessions that there's not so many cars on track? Does that give you an opportunity to stretch your legs, if you like?
Yeah, it's not so much car on the track, but some cars, they are not so fast. so we have to manage the pace. Yeah, so it's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
And are you happy with the balance and the feel of the car? Are all of you sort of very comfortable here? It looks like it.
I think the car is quite okay, but we can like adjust a bit with the car. We need more time in the setup, but the car was okay to drive. Yeah.
So just before we chatted, you just nipped over to have a word with the next driver. What did you say?
Just try to like comment something with the car, like how to drive a bit, because the track condition is quite hot, so I had to adjust a bit. Yeah.
Anthony, thank you.
Thank you.
Kantandi Kasuri, who's a mightily experienced driver, 29 years old, from Konburi, Thailand, and he's been in the Porsche Super Cup in the past with Fach Autotech. He's driven in Super GT in Japan, and in 2017 he was a TCR Asia champion with a big team, Liqui Team Engstler. So plenty of pedigree there for Kantandi Kasuri, and we will find out who will be the third and final selected driver in car 158. The checkered flag out, though, at the end of the second 12-minute session here at the 24 Hours of Barcelona. Great to have you with us. This is the 24 Hours of Barcelona. Greetings from a fabulous racetrack, the Hockenheim Ring. It's the 7th running of the Hankook 12 Hours of Hungary. A warm welcome, everybody, to, again, another event with the 24H series.
What do I enjoy about endurance racing? A couple of things. The strategy aspect of it, there's a lot of strategy, but also the driver team aspect. Not just the single solo driver, but working with other drivers, sharing a car, managing the car. Just the camaraderie of it is awesome.
It's super competitive, and I think the one thing that we learnt early on about this type of racing is consistency is key. And that's consistency in everything, in every element of the team, not just the full drivers. Staying out of trouble, being consistent, and you will win races.
To have so many hours to drive, you can drive. You are a team. It's very important that you can drive with a team. You are not only the driver who wins a race, it's the whole team.
So if the mechanics fail, we all fail. If two drivers fail, we all fail. So I think it's exciting that everybody has to work together to make this work.
So the reason why I decided to race in the endurance is because I think endurance is really help me, because you have a lot of driving time. I'm trying to be a professional driver in the next few years. So racing with all the best driver of the world is awesome stuff. And it's really helped for my experience.
I've been racing since 1999 actually, so lots of sprint races every 20 minutes, you're hardly warming up. I like the feeling of total exhaustion at the end. There's nothing quite like it, and the 24-hour series is I think probably the best place for drivers like myself and pros and up-and-coming drivers to really push themselves to the limit, and it is a complete endurance event. It's not just 24 hours. Actually, our race here starts really on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's a 96-hour event, if you like. It's by the end of the race, you know you've been racing.
Last year was our first full season.
Revs are rising for the third and final TCE session then, which are another 12 minutes on the clock, together with the Iberian Supercars Endurance Series as well combined. And Lima Racing, on the average times, are the top, but you will understand the reasons why we are fully focused on the 116 Audi RS3 LMS, Wolf Power Racing's Audi. Jasmine Preissig was just at the wheel of the 116 car, and second fastest so far in the Creventic cars is the Cupra Leon Competition number 158. Let's get straight to die before this session. You've managed to find Matt Neal.
I have. Matt Neal joins me now just as this session gets underway, and I think Henry's behind the wheel for this this final qualifying session, Matt?
Henry, yeah. He's the quicker one of all of us at the moment, so yeah, I don't mind. It's great. So yeah, it's just it's quite a new car. It's not been raced before, so we're just trying to have some fun and develop the car as quickly as we can. It's a real family affair between the Kays and the Neils this weekend.
Well, it's absolutely great to see you here, Matt. Obviously, we all know you from British Touring Cars back in the UK. Lots of touring cars, tune into the 24-hour series. They'll be delighted to see you back behind the wheel and think, well, does that mean you're going back to BTCC? I know you get asked that all the time.
I've always been a big fan of the Creventic series. I think it's great racing, the lovely people who drive it, and I would say anybody who wants to look at endurance racing, it's the place to come and place to be. They go to nice circuits around the world, and they do it in a proper way. So, they've got new exciting races with Kuwait and that in Dubai in the early part of next year. So it's nice to come and have a great time here at Barcelona. BTC is another thing. We've got a couple of rounds left this year. We're hybrid, which has been sort of had mixed reception this year. I always say never. That's why I didn't want to announce a retirement, but I've got to be realistic about things, really.
Well, it's great to see you back behind the wheel here in Barcelona. How challenging is this circuit? And of course, you've got so much seat time, haven't you, and a great team with you.
Yeah, I think it's getting used to. I've never driven a TCR. Bizarrely, I've never driven a TCR car before, and they're quite a different animal. Considering they're not too far away in times to a British touring car, they're quite a different animal. In the British touring cars, they're much more physical. You've really got to hang on to the things, but you can do a lot more with them. Yeah, it's trying to dull down your senses and take out this chip, put in another one, and the competition is still. There's a bit of a rogues gallery up and down the pit lane with Huffy here, Vincent Rademacher here, and a few of the other guys. James Kay, he's been around the block a few times as well.
I'm sure he'll be happy to hear you say that. Also, you've got your two sons here as well. What does that mean to you to be able to now embrace your career with your family?
This is the first time ever I'll race with both my sons in the same car, and it's something I always wanted to do with my dad. Something special, you share the experience and share the ride, and it's something I really wanted to do with the boys before I get too old or they get too old or one or the other. So it's just, hopefully it's not the last one we do.
As I said, great to see you. We'll chat to you over the weekend. We've obviously got a long race to go. I'll let you get back to see what happens in this session. Thanks, Matt.
It's going pretty well at the moment. Matt Neal joining Diana Binks in the pit lane.
I hope it's not the last one they do. I'd love to see the Neal family become a part of and do a full championship season.
That would be great.
I know the logistics and the operations and the funding and the cost what it takes, but wouldn't that be fabulous to see the Neals racing towards a championship, not just a race honour, but a championship? Would be fabulous.
Wholeheartedly
get working
agree
on
with
that, Matt.
Yeah. He sounds like he's open to persuasion for me. Rob
I don't
Huff.
think he needs persuading. I think he's all for it.
Rob Huff's in the 116 Wolf Power Racing Audi, as expected. So he's the pro in the Belgian team's offering. We've already had Jasmine Price, he had mentioned, driving in the middle sector. And Marlon Menden started that as well. So consistency, particularly across the selected drivers in qualifying, very, very good. However, Kantasak Kusuri has started like a man possessed in a way, because Cooper Leon Competition has just set 2 absolute best sector times. Let's see whether he can link them all together and get a little closer to the total time. But he's up against Rob Huff.
Is Huffy the only FIA world champion we have in this field?
That's a very good question,
isn't it? Let's put that out to the collective.
Yeah,
if anybody can answer that question. I'm scanning the entry list. I think I'm gonna make a punt at saying that.
So you're talking about FIA world champions?
FIA world champion, yeah.
On
FIA
4 wheels?
No, 2 wheels will do as well.
Okay.
Well, it would be FIM on 2 wheels.
All right, well, let's lump in
FIA,
FIM as well.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think we've got any world championship motorcyclists, but you never know in this part of the world. We have had motorcyclists in the Spanish and motorcyclists who've done very, very well. Certainly Grand Prix winners take part in this 24 Hours of Barcelona in the past. So, some interrogation of the entry list, which has been a sort of movable feast of late. There's
Always.
been various versions of it, and even the one that I'm clutching right now has the word provisional stamped at the top, but this is as final as we can get. ahead of the two sessions.
It usually becomes final about an hour before the start of the race, Johnny, where they draw a line under it and saying, you know, no more entries, please. Deals have been done. Deals are still to be done. Hello to Richard Robinson, who tweets in. He says, I know refuelling is irrelevant to quali, but do the new pumps slow delivery nearing the total allowed, like supermarkets? If yes, will the team short fuel to save time in the pits? I'll tell you what, Richard, if you are serious about your qualifying, then fuel is far from being irrelevant. It's very relevant, and the necessary fuel needed to make the car as light as possible. Just consider this: a litre of fuel weighs 0.7 of a kilogram, and if you were running 10 litres more, then that's 7 kilograms, and 7 kilograms is a lot of weight. You're accelerating the weight, you're decelerating the weight, so the more weight you have, then the car will handle differently. You've got more weight on the car, and it makes it, you know, marginally slower. And I'm talking science here to a scientific level. I'm not sure the fuel pumps are as sophisticated as your supermarket pumps, that as you get close to that £99 limit, it starts going ridiculously slowly. I'm not sure that is. I think it's just got they're quite sort of basic fuel, pistol delivery, fuel, what's the word I'm looking for?
I do know as well.
Those things that stand there, fuel delivery points, let's call them. So they are, but I'm not sure they will slow down. But what I will tell you is that some of the more savvy team managers in this field will go out and they will put a stopwatch on the delivery time from each pump, and they will try and get to the pump that's slightly quicker. Yes, that's how intense it is. Doesn't matter how long the race is, we're still shaving and sharpening the razor blade during those pit stop phases.
But the cars effectively between these sessions go into parc ferme.
No, they can't. They can
refuel. So that's the exception. You can do tyre pressures, and you can pop a bit of fuel in.
You're not allowed to change the tyres. You are allowed to check the tyre pressure. You would be able to change a tyre if force majeure came into play, like you found a puncture or debris or damage on the tyre. You don't want to send a car out in some sort of dangerous state. And as far as I've been made aware, you are allowed to go out with the minimum amount of fuel needed for the 12 minutes today, so that you'll see when the drivers come back in, they will quickly go into the fuel section, which is on pit in here in Barcelona, and that becomes more significant when we get into the race and people choose to pit stop under code 60s, etc., and get servicing. More of that tomorrow when we get towards race conditions, or maybe even we'll mention it in night practice tonight. So you'll see cars, the drivers bring them in and they will fuel the car in preparation for their teammate who will take the car over.
And there's not really a fuel quadrant as such here. It's just a lay-by, in effect, which is an additional part of the pit lane. So you don't have to travel too far away from pit road itself, just round behind a concrete wall, which is there for safety reasons. There's also a big pickup, which is a fire, I can't read that second word. Intervention is probably exactly right, yeah. Fire intervention. Half of the word is missing, actually, but that's truck number 3. And you've got marshals in there raring to go should the worst happen. 1, 2, 3, 4 pumps available.
Yeah, 4 fueling stations. That becomes significant when we do end up during certain aspects of our 24 series races where you can have a queue forming, and teams will have their personnel down there under the shade of awnings, I'll have you, in this heat. It's probably a good idea. And the team will be in radio communication with their guys at the fueling station. And like I said, Johnny, here at Barcelona, the fuel station is at pit in, so that becomes a significant factor in decision making. When cars come in a damaged state, they go into fueling first, and it's quite a sight to see a car on a punctured or suspension damage going and fueling first. We're getting towards the end of the qualifying though, Johnny.
Yeah, and popping up pretty late on is the Holmgaard Motorsport Cupra Leon Competition. That's down to Roy Edlin's time. Roy doing a 1:59.822, and the other 2 times from his teammates, 1:59.3, 1:59.8. So pretty much as close as you can get it to Edlin's effort. Edlin marginally faster than his co-driver, but interestingly, the AM session for that car, 1:02, has produced the best time of the 3 there. And the timing screen, if you're keeping an eye on that online, is all of a sudden an awful lot easier to read, because the Iberian Supercar Endurance Series do not take part in this third session. They've only got 2 drivers for their 2 hours of racing tomorrow afternoon. So they immediately drop down on how this screen is configured, because a third time is not being offered, basically. So that will mean that Rob Huff in the Wolf Power Racing Audi, looking to be on course on the 3-driver average to be quickest, and by half a second, in fact, over the combined efforts of the BBR Cupra Leon Competition. Kantasak Kusiri at the wheel of the 158. His best lap time's just been done. It's a 158.266, so that's giving the car an average of a 158.6. It's about half a second away from the Wolf Power Racing Audi. Third fastest, as I say, popping up late in the session, the 102, last driven by Roy Edland. Then you've got the Sandy Stuvik BBR Cupra with the TCR version for car 159. So championship leaders looking like they might have a second row start, whereas the championship second place runners for Wolf Power Racing on course for pole.
24-8 Series stalwart fan Jimmy Peters Ennis confirms he's done the research. Rob Huff is the only FIA World Champion in our field this afternoon. He is the only driver to have dipped inside the 157s. He's done a 157.935, and he's gone just under 3/10 quicker than his teammates to give that car the fastest lap time average over this three segments of qualifying. He's backing off now. I think that job is done. He's backing right off, not to in fact, that's the 188 just going past now, the 188. Vincent Rademacher at the wheel of the AC Motorsport car. There's a couple of touring car legends there on track at the same time. Rademacher overtaking Rob Huff there, as Rob Huff, I think that's their qualifying session coming to a close there as he brings the 116 Wolf Power Racing car in on the provisional board. I say provisional, Johnny, the checkered flag flies. It's always provisional until we've gone through Parc Fermé and gone through tech and scrutineering and the cars are checked, and then everything's classified.
But it is slightly more certain now that we've reached the end of the third and final session. So, yeah, barring major incident post-sessions, Rob Huff and his teammates, Marlon Menden, Jasmine Preissig, looking like they have combined brilliantly well to get a pole position for the Wolf Power Racing crew. So congratulations to 116. Just heading now through the final sequence of corners. Rob yet to actually see the checkered flag. He's turning right now through turn 13 down towards the left and right, which have very large sausage curbs on the inside of each of those elements of the chicane. You need to steer clear of those, particularly early on in a long stint. And Rob actually choosing not to take the checkered flag on the racetrack. He's not... There's nothing in the regulations that stipulate you must do, because he's basically called the session just a bit short, and will head initially for fueling, but I think we get briefly a letter F even if the car doesn't go for fuel. Although it has done, hasn't it? No, 116 stays out. So
yeah, 116 has gone straight past Johnny.
But that is useful to know nevertheless, because even if it doesn't take the lay-by into fueling, there's sort of a segment of both lanes there that trigger as the letter F, and then it will be into the pit lane properly. So, Wolf Power Racing and the Audi RS3 LMS TCR are top of the shot, and the combined time, well, actually, that's Rob Huff's, the 157.935, but when you link all the times together, you get an average of a 158.167. Then the 158 BBR car, Kantasak Kusiri, doing the 158.2, and that car will start second on the grid, ahead of the Holmgaard Motorsport Leon Competition, the team from Denmark. Second, BBR car from the Thai team, that's their TCR rather than the Leon Competition. That will start from the outside of the second row. Then of Spain, it is Rail Equipe by Tot Car Sport and Alvaro Rodriguez Sastro in his Cupra. Link all those times together. Alba Cana Ramirez, for example, did the second part of qualifying, and their car will start from fifth alongside AC Motorsport's Audi RS3 car 188. Then it's the Schenker Motorsport Treble 4 BMW M4. the 138 Simpson Motorsport machine of the 3 family Neal members, together with Sasha Kakar, Ricky Kumba and James Kay. Then you've got the Vipanitsa Racing TCR car, which is another Cupra. 9th position for the 165, ahead of South Korea, Atlas BX Motorsports, the GT4 of Mercedes, 10th, and finally in 11th position, the Hoffa Racing by Bonk Motorsport BMW M2 CS racing car, number 332, as we head straight for Diana Binks in the pits.
Yes, I'm with Jasmin Prisic, who's waiting here on Rob Huff to bring the car up, but unfortunately he's gone down to scrutineering. But Jasmin, great work by yourself and the team to take that class pole.
Also, thank you very much. Now we are all very happy. We had always some little things who was not matching, but today it was all good. It was quite, I don't know in English, eng, egal. But yeah, we are happy. Now we have pole position and we are ready for tomorrow.
How well are you all working together, and how much information are you discussing and sharing to help you?
We had at the beginning, in the morning, a lot of problems with the setup, so we are discussing a lot. But now we found, I think, the good one, and I hope it's also the good one for the race. And yeah, we have Rob in our team, so that's all good for our drivers and for the whole team. And
yeah, it's not too bad, is it, having the 2012 World Touring Car Champion alongside you?
No, it's not too bad. He's an old man, but he's not too bad. No.
Okay, well, look, congratulations for the moment. No doubt we'll chat to you over the weekend.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Jasmin Prisic, big smile on the 30-year-old's face from St Gallen in Switzerland. And Rob Huff, I think, has just crept towards Diana Binks. Yeah, he literally just got back, so the helmet's just coming off. Is he a bit warm and sweaty to talk to?
Yeah, he is warm and sweaty, but he will talk. We just need to get him some water, I think. So if anyone's got some spare water, he could do with a little drink. So let him have that just to catch his breath. But Rob, we've just caught you as you've had to walk back up the pit lane here. A great start to the weekend for sure.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Testament to the team. I mean, the lap Marlon did in the first session was brilliant. Jasmin confirmed that.
Thank you so much.
But the team, you know, we've been here for 3 days now. The team are doing an amazing job. And we're on top of the car, which is brilliant. We've got a car that all the drivers can drive. And yeah, let's hope this time we get to the end.
I mean, you've clearly got a great team here. They've all been incredibly friendly to us, and we've been waiting on you coming up. And they said basically, you know, you had some issues in the practice, but you were sort of looking to find the optimum setup that you could, but you had a conversation together to work out what would be the best way to go.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, Marlon and I were testing here in their car on Wednesday. And of course the weather conditions were completely different. It was quite cold, very cool. With the front wheel drive cars, they're so sensitive to ambient and track temperature. And of course, I then didn't really do any driving today. We left it to the guys to get up to speed. And they were all complaining the same thing. And then it's just, you know, trying to find in the memory bank what we've changed before, which helps. But like I say, the team have been really on top of the game today, and we made a hell of a car for qualifying. So now we've got to make a hell of a race car, which I'm confident we can do as well. But yeah, just huge testament to the team.
Great work. Thanks, Rob. Go well.
Rob Huff in the 116 Wolf Power Racing Audi. They will start from pole position for tomorrow's 24 Hours of Barcelona.
Great to have you with us. This is the 24 Hours of Barcelona. Greetings from a fabulous racetrack, the Hockenheim Ring. It's the 7th running of the Hankook 12 Hours of Hungary. A warm welcome, everybody, to, again, another event with the 24H series.
What do I enjoy about endurance racing? A couple of things. The strategy aspect of it, there's a lot of strategy, but also the driver team aspect. Not just the single solo driver, but working with other drivers, sharing a car, managing the car. Just the camaraderie of it is awesome.
It's super competitive, and I think the one thing that we learnt early on about this type of racing is consistency is key. And that's consistency in everything and every element of the team, not just the four drivers. Staying out of trouble, being consistent, and you will win races.
To have so many hours to drive, you can drive. You are a team. It's very important that you can drive with a team. You are not only the driver who wins a race, it's the whole team.
So if the mechanics fail, we all fail. If two drivers fail, we all fail. So I think it's exciting that everybody has to work together to make this work.
So the reason why I decided to race in the endurance is because I think endurance is really help me because you have a lot of driving time. I'm trying to be a professional driver in the next few years. So racing with all the best driver of the world is awesome stuff. And it's really helped for my experience.
I've been racing since 1999 actually, so lots of sprint races every 20 minutes, you're hardly warming up. I like the feeling of total exhaustion at the end. There's nothing quite like it, and the 24-hour series is I think probably the best place for drivers like myself and pros and up-and-coming drivers to really push themselves to the limit, and it is a complete endurance event. It's not just 24 hours. Actually, our race here starts really on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's a 96-hour event, if you like. It's by the end of the race, you know you've been racing.
Last year was our first full season. We had experienced the series in 2019 in Coda. We did the first 24-hour in Coda with the series, and that was our introduction. The people are great, and honestly, we came back in 21 to do the full series, and because of Peter and all the staff of the 24 hours, they know how to run a series. It's very team-friendly, which we appreciate.
Creventic are very clever at the way they pick the races. They're great places to go to as well. It's not just about being on the track. You know, come to Dubai in midwinter, there are worse places to go. Barcelona is a terrific track. You know, Zandvoort's a lot of fun. So it's a really nice place to be.
Absolutely. I mean, we're going to some of the coolest tracks in Europe and even in the world.
It's good to start here in Dubai, and it's good later on to go to Portimao. It's good to go to Barcelona, where it will be hot. So no, I think it's perfect this year. Really good.
They have read the room correctly. As the cars have changed, as it has evolved, we've got more pros, and as the racing series around the planet has changed, they've adapted things. They were one of the first to adapt the TCR model, okay, which is now a global model and part of the TCE category here, the TCE endurance category with TCX. And so they were the first ones to gravitate to that and get that as a category. That's now global. So what they've done is that if you have a car in any of the GT4, GT3, 911, 991, 992 category, or a TCR car, anywhere on the planet, you can race in a Creventic race. Seeing now how that has evolved into what it is, Creventic now being a global motorsports company, just behind WEC and IMSA in GT racing. And with their racing all over the planet, they have multiple championships running. So they've been very smart for understanding the planet of motorsport evolution and keeping Creventic at the forefront of that.
I think the 24-hour series it's got that perfect blend of competitiveness and amicable, welcoming nature, right? It's not intimidating in many ways. The organisers are they're helpful. They want to listen to you. They want to engage in conversation. And I think for an amateur team, a family team like ours, that's kind of the nature we want to be in. We're not, we all have day jobs and we've got a multitude of other things to worry about. Worrying about being super competitive in our hobby is probably not the way we want to go just yet, although competitiveness is contagious. And the great thing is it's super competitive on track. So it has that, like I said, it has that perfect mix. It's once you're on the circuit, everyone's trying to win, right?
Look, it's racing, we're all competitive, but they make the little things, you know, important to them, and you know, the gifts that they give drivers, and the small little touches that Creventic does, no other series does it.
The organization, the people, they are so amazing, and the weekends are very good, and everything is always perfect, and yes, I'm very happy to be a part of it.
Creventic is the most perfect series for us because everybody we talk to at Creventic is always friendly. There's a very friendly atmosphere. When we come and ask for something, it's always nearly almost a yes, or we look into it, or we try to solve it for you. I think they do so many things for the teams and for the drivers, so we love to be here. It's exciting circuits. We travel to exciting places where it's fun to be for the team, and we really enjoyed it.
I think what they've done is they've opened it up to try and keep it very club-like. Yes, we've got the pro teams down there, but they're still out on the same piece of tarmac that the AM teams are, the weekend drivers who are not pros. It opens it up to everybody, and in a 24-hour race, anybody's got a chance of finishing. There's always that hope there, and I think they've read the room. They understand what the drivers are doing. They understand what the teams are doing and what they're looking to purchase. Then they mould and massage their regulations to try and keep the cost at a minimum. Balance of performance is a huge thing in motorsport. They do it with driver timings and fuel loadings rather than expensive modifications to your car to make it into a category. That is what's really attractive to teams who are looking at a budget racing series. Well, there's no such thing as budget racing in motorsport, but to keep the costs under control and travel. Plus, they organise all your freight and everything else. All you got to do is turn up and drive. That is one of the important things about how and why Creventic now are so successful.
I think the key thing is Creventic understand that we're their customer, and they will do whatever they can to make life a little bit easier for us. And we don't want to go away racing and waste our time. So Creventic will understand that, and they work very hard with drivers and teams to give us a really good platform to go racing with.
This is endurance.
Das ist Endurance.
这里是24小时耐力赛。
هذا هو التحمل. This is endurance.
It is time to go GT qualifying live here from the Hankook 24 Hours of Barcelona here in Catalonia, the northeastern part of Spain, for the Trofeo Fermi Velez, an event that first took place in 1998 and for a long period, for the first 2 decades, was actually touring car only, and it's therefore in recent years that we have had GT3 cars and other very swift machines eligible to take part in this as well. So this is the first of 3 12-minute sessions for the more powerful cars. It's Joe Bradley and Johnny Palmer in the main commentary box, but we've had a change in the pit lane because the one and only Andrew Marriott joins our coverage for the first time this weekend. Andrew.
Okay, can you hear me now? You can. It's great to be back here in Barcelona, this fantastic Grand Prix track, and great to be back in a Creventic race. I haven't done one since Sebring last year, and I got very wet there. Well, I'm currently in the Ferrari pit here, the German W2M team, but actually run by the Rinaldi organisation. And I know the owner, George Weiss, is in the car at the moment, but coming up, the very fast Argentine driver, and then finally we'll have the top German in the car, and that, of course, Daniel Kulvitz, who's, I think, been a winner of the Nürburgring 24 Hours in the past, certainly a star of GT Masters. So I think this car could be on the pole, but who knows what can happen. There's lots of good GT3 cars, so it's everything to play for, guys.
Yeah, we've really been treated this weekend to some truly brilliant driving lineups. There has to be an AM element in each of them, but it's tough to call. I'm surprised Andy's nailing his colours to the mast so early there.
He's not exactly rolling the dice, though, putting his money on the WTM Ferrari. They know how to go fast, very fast, in these qualifying sessions, and yeah, I won't be surprised at all if I see the number 22 Ferrari on the pole position tomorrow afternoon. However, he's right in what he says. You know, you've got a lot of contention here. Phoenix Racing, they're leading the championship, have led the GT3, the overall championship, since round 2, and continue to lead the championship. ST Racing are back. You know, you can't discount Samantha Tan Racing. Nick Wittmer, Bryson Morris sharing the car with team principal and team owner Samantha Tan. And that BMW has proved to be a very, very potent machine. Looking down the order, Johnny, CB Racing, all right, they may not be, you know, on for pole position, but when we talk about going forward from qualifying and into the race, you can never discount. Overall winners at Portimao, remember?
Yeah.
And I would have lost money on saying that was their first overall victory. I'm pretty sure I'd seen them win overall before. I was wrong, that was their first overall victory. It's perhaps because I've seen them on the podium so many times. And hey, how could we forget and not mention the return of the Krolls? Hofer Racing back with their Mercedes. I say the return of the Krolls, it's only Michael Kroll bearing that surname now, but his daughter Chantel now with the surname of Prince after marrying teammate and husband Alexander Prince. They're in the car, 2 new drivers to the Hofer team, and if anybody out there been a stalwart fan of the 24-inch series, these are former overall champions in this team. They've now got Max Bartel and Thomas Mullens. I'm not familiar with Thomas's name, but we'll look more into that. What have the Krolls been up to? What has Chantel been up to since we last saw them race, which was the pre-2020 season? Well, we've been busy having 2 kids. Chantel and Alexander have become parents, so I'm pretty sure their view on the world will be completely different. In fact, they're here for a 24-hour race to catch up on their sleep, no doubt.
Probably for an escape, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because it's quieter here. No, I'm sure they're very well-behaved kids. Mullens from Bergisch Gladbach. I knew this from memory, Joe.
Get out of town.
No, I don't. It's a very good database that I often go to. He's been racing Formula Koenig since mid-90s, actually, but has had a bit of time out of motor racing for, well, looks suspiciously like COVID, because he was last racing in the VLN as it was then in 2019, then didn't do anything in 2020 and hasn't since. But I reckon this will be his 24H series debut. Yeah, not done any Creventic racing prior to this, the 45-year-old German. Meanwhile, the 91 Porsche, which is being driven by Ralph Bone. So again, this first session of the 3 has to be an AM driver and no higher ranked than that. Beyond this, though, there are no further restrictions. I'm immediately looking at Joe Foster. Oh yes, who is AM? I'm sure he's been a semi-pro in the past, but
he has, yeah.
Will have reached a significant birthday, and that will have knocked him down a rating, which the team will be very happy about, because he's still just as quick, but rated as an AM. It's Charles Espenlau, who is marginally higher rated as an AM plus within the 85 CP Racing Mercedes. They are 4th so far, but the times, well, they're coming in now. Most of the cars in the session, all of the cars in the session, have now done 3 laps each. Ralph Bone's Porsche quickest from Samantha Tan's ST Racing BMW M4, carrying still almost like this art car livery. Very cool pinky purple type wrap on that car, and may well have been designed by Sam and the rest of her crew. ST, unsurprisingly, standing for Samantha Tan in the team's name. Hofer Racing and Alexander Prinz, who we've just been talking about, their number 11 Mercedes is 3rd quickest, ahead of CP Racing's AMG GT3, and it's Poulsen Motorsports BMW M4, which is 5th fastest for Christian Poulsen himself. So Christian Poulsen, there surely is another FIA World Champion.
Oh, that's
GTE
a good
level.
shout. Yeah, we'll check that out. I've just seen Thierry Vermeulen in the 977, Johnny. and I'm just going to check. I'm pretty sure that it's mandatory that you run an AM driver in this first sector of qualifying. And we see Michael Doppelmayr, for instance, in the Phoenix Racing Audi, number 18, down the order. He is definitely an AM. The 977. Did I say 977? Yes, I did. The 977. It's the... I've lost it on my sheet.
Thierry Vermeulen.
Thierry Vermeulen is down as the pro.
Yeah, he's silver on my list as well. So that might need chasing at Rabdan Motorsport, because chatting with Ola Duleman earlier on in the day, the suggestion from him at least was that this first session would be AM only. There might have been a little tweak in the rulings for the order. As long as one of the sessions you do utilise an AM, then hopefully there's not going to be too many dramas for Rabdan Motorsport. Christian Poulsen was a FIA World Champion in GTE AM 2014 when he took...
Good spot, Johnny.
He took the title for Aston Martin Racing, and his fellow... well, he had sort of changing drivers throughout that season, I seem to recall. Did he finish, therefore, as joint champion with, yes, David Heinemeier Hansen and Christian Poulsen were both FIA World Champions in the World Endurance Championship as many as 8 years ago. Time really has flown. So that's at least 2 that we have in the lineup.
Yeah, we may even find more.
You never know.
As the weekend progresses.
Yeah, indeed. Tip of the iceberg.
I haven't got the answer to why Vermeulen is at the wheel of the 977. I'm pretty sure, I'm going to dig the regs out. I'm pretty sure that it's mandatory to run the one of your AM drivers in this first part, only the first part, where it's mandatory. A lot of cars into the pits as well, the Hofer Racing Mercedes being one of them. They're currently 4th overall, Alexander Prince being the first qualifier in that car. Joe Foster has brought CP Racing Mercedes in. Ralph Bond still tops the timesheets. His time is straightforward, this one, 1:49.388 is the fastest time of the session so far. Christian Poulsen in the BMW of Poulsen Motorsport, 49.939. So Ralph Bond, the 91 car, Johnny, remember, Herbert Motorsport came here last year and took a 1-2 victory here with 2 cars. They have had a nightmare of a season. As Ralph Bond brings the car into the pits, Samantha Tan into the pits. I think we're getting towards the first part of this qualifying session over. 25 seconds remaining, that's the reason why. Time flies, doesn't it? You know what, all right, it's 12 minutes. We've reduced it by 3. It's normally 15, but because of the delays in the sessions today, we've reduced that by 12. So 12 minutes running. By the time you've done your out lap, that's almost... what, 2.5 minutes by the time you get up to speed? So 12 minutes is not really much time. And now we're seeing Ralph Bond get out of the car. We'll probably see Daniel Alleman take over the wheel of the 91 as the checkered flag flies for the first segment of qualifying for GTs over, Johnny.
So it'll be Ralph Bone quickest, 1:49.388 from Christian Poulsen, who really jettisoned up the times there, and I wonder whether his chosen number, which is 14, is to, you know, a duff of the cap of year 2014 for him and those associated with Aston Martin Racing. He's in a BMW M4 this weekend, though. Also, Poulsen very active in the Le Mans Cup for 2022, where he and the rest of the team at GMB Motorsport are running as many as 3 Honda NSX GT3s. We haven't got any Hondas here this weekend, and instead Christian reverting to the Bavarian brand BMW, but Poulsen nipping ahead of Samantha Tan in the closing stages there. What was the gap? It was almost half a second, actually, in the end.
You might be wondering, Johnny, why I'm putting so much emphasis on this regulation where you're only allowed to put your AM driver in first. Of course, if you put your superstar in, your pro driver in, he's going to get the maximum out of those brand new Hankooks. And so that's going to be an absolutely optimized run on those fresh Hankooks. And that's why I think the regulation is there. Well, I'm not thinking at all. I know that's why the regulation is there.
Indeed. And I know for a fact that Andrew Marriott has lined up someone from Herbert Motorsport for reaction.
Well, it's Ralph Bone, of course. Terrific job there. You've given the team a really good start for this session.
Well, P1 is always a good start, yeah, but it's not my best lap time so far. We're searching a little bit for power.
Really? Why is that?
Well, I cannot explain, I'm not the mechanic in the end, but we're searching compared to the other cars a little bit of power, but this is all the season long, so it's fine so far. Thank you.
Do you like this qualifying way of using the 3 different drivers?
Yes, it's a good competition to go in the average of 3, so it's not up to 1 to be the fastest, it's up to the team to be the fastest, and we are in a team sport, and I like team sport.
And now the twins, Alfred first?
I think it's Alfred now, yeah, and then in the end Robert, as usual. Yeah.
So Pole could be there.
Thank you.
So Ralph Bone complaining at maybe not getting the usual amount of ponies out of that 4-litre flat 6 that sits behind the rear wheels of a 911 GT3.
Typical race driver, Johnny, complaining. I didn't have enough power, but you're on pole. I know, the car wasn't great, but you're on pole. You know, I mean, there's the rundown right there.
So 5 drivers listed for the 91 Herbert Motorsport Porsche. We're only going to see 3 of them because that's as much as qualifying allows for. Ralph Bone in for the first time, and it's suggested it'll be Alfred next and Robert to finish. The Poulsen Motorsport BMW was threatening to be there, but it took, I think, Poulsen's final flying lap to pop up there with a 149.939. Really wasn't too far away from Ralph Bone's efforts, 0.6 of a second or so. And Christian joined by Roland Poulsen, Christopher Nygaard and Alfred Nilsson, the Swede. ST Racing's BMW at the moment 3rd, but 2 more sessions to come. Hoffa Racing's Mercedes AMG 4th fastest at 150.583. Then CP Racing for a long time 4th, but popped down to 5th in the closing stages. Rabdan Motorsports Porsche Cup car from the 992 division, that's number 977, 6th fastest, ahead of a similar car, although a 991 Gen machine for Huber Racing, 7th fastest. Dynamic Motorsports 991 Porsche, 8th quickest, car number 54 for the Italian run team. Vortex V8's 1.0 did a 151.8 to go 9th fastest. Jutta Racing of Lithuania, 10th quickest. They have an Audi R8 LMS GT3, the first evolution of that car. Number 71 was 10th fastest. Bapora Motorsport running a Porsche Cup car this weekend and the newer spec version. 951 was 11th fastest. 909 Red Camel Jordans.NL, similar car. They were 12th. Then it is the Seb Lajour Racing by Duvo Racing, number 908. With the flag of Luxembourg, 13th. 14th position for Belgian squad Red Ant Racing, number 903, also with a 992 Porsche, 14th fastest. Lippert Motorsport of Germany with the lead Lamborghini Huracan, Super Trofeo spec car, 15th. And another Red Ant Racing Porsche was 16th position, car 904. Then on into WTM racing with the Wochenspiegel team Monschau Ferrari 488, 17th fastest. RD Signs Siliau Racing team, number 720, also of Lithuania, 18th. 360 Racing team with their Porsche, 19th. HRT Performances 992. Porsche as well, 20th position. These are all Porsches actually. 360 Racing second offering there of Romania, 21st. HRT Performance, 22nd. Phoenix Racing, what happened to them in the session? Michael Doppelmayr, known to be a little slower than his teammates. I'm sure that'll come into the reckoning once we get further through qualifying. And finally, on that screen at least, 24th position, Vortex V8's 702. And the pit lane is open for the second time for GT classes. Remember, these sessions include GT3, GTX, so those cars that sit outside of the normal GT3 regulations, but aren't a million miles away. It's just that Creventic can't legitimately say they're GT3 cars, so they're GTX machines, exempt from the regulations of GT3, if you like. 991 and 992, they are both Porsche classes for the different iterations, the different generations of Porsche Cup cars. 991 shape. And David Sarni in the 908 car returning to the racetrack for Seb Lajour Racing by Duvo. So the Duvo bit is the team from Luxembourg, Seb Lajour of France, and they've kind of combined the driving talents. Seb Lajour, along with a guy called Jaume Font, were both in action here 2 weeks ago for a couple of Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux races. You might think Barcelona, Benelux, but that was sort of their away weekend, their away time, mainly based in Belgium and the Netherlands. They don't actually have a race in Luxembourg, even though the Lux is there in Benelux. But they enjoy, spreading their wings and came to Barcelona for a couple of 30-minute races 2 weeks ago. Seb Lejour was in that race, as was Jaume Font, who we'll be seeing later on as well.
Nice little jaunt down the Iberian Peninsula, just into the Iberian Peninsula here in Barcelona, northern Mediterranean coast, just before the French border. The French border, not 70 kilometers, I think, just north of here.
Yeah.
I've just been looking at Thierry Vermeulen. He's managed by Jos Verstappen, who's the father of the current Formula 1 world champion, as we all know. And he's a familiar name to the 24H series. He did a race with the Red Camels Jordan when they first took possession of their 992 Porsche and ran in the GTX class back in 2021. And he's also run with he ran in the ADAC Masters this year with Car Collection Motorsport, the GT Masters, that is the German championship. And he's also run with Team GP Elite in the 24. I think that was in Dubai this year. So he is a familiar driver. He has now completed his qualifying, and that number 977, that currently 6th overall, Enrico Fernando Fulgenzi. I hope I've said that right. Fulgenzi. He's the AM Plus at the wheel of the 977. The Rabdan Porsche currently leading the 992 class, but with that 6th place overall, with that outstanding lap by that experienced and very promising, keep an eye on that name, Thierry Vermeulen. If it's your first time seeing this driver, this is where you saw him first, because I'm pretty sure he's destined to make a name for himself in this sport.
So if they've used Vermeulen in the opening session, and you said Fernando Fulgenzi is in now, that suggests Nikolai Gadetsky will have to be used in the final session.
I have it from a very good source who's very confident, because whenever that's thrown at me, I'm kind of, if I had the regulations and I had time to look through them, I'd be more confident. But I have it from a very good source that is basically not allowed in the regulations.
Right. Okay. So we are tippy-toeing here
the
on.
reason, that's why the car is the quickest 992 car and 6th overall.
Yeah.
Because you've absolutely optimised with your pro driver on those fresh Hankooks.
And Manuel Laut very wide coming out of the final corner and dipped at least 2 Hankooks well into the gravel trap there, which isn't a million miles away from the curbing. That's really going to compromise your straight line speed. I like the paint scheme on that second fastest car. Manuel Laut doesn't seem to have been delayed a great deal. It has to be said, although he has just been pinged for track limits. So he popped up the second fastest there and all of a sudden goes back down again because he ran far too wide, I would assume, out of that final corner. As I say, I don't think there were 2 Hankooks the right side of that pretty thick white line, which designates where the edge of the track is. So that was the Uber Racing Porsche, briefly to second, back down to 19th as we head to the pits and Andrew Marriott.
Well, I've just spoken to Thierry Vermeulen, and now he's got away from me, unfortunately. Of course, he's the guy that's managed by Jos Verstappen. He's not sure, to be honest. He just says they put him in the car. I said, well, you're not an AM, and he shook his head. I think they made a big mistake here.
Yeah, I would agree, Andrew. That's the danger, having not read the regulations correctly. And, we did have it from one of the Creventic officials, no less, Ola Doleman, that the first session in each of the batches, TCR and GT, is AM only. Yeah. And yes, they may well say, well, we're going to use Nikolai Gadetsky in the final session. That's all very well, but you had to do it in session 1.
Yeah.
So we don't know there's definitely going to be a penalty.
No.
But I'm sure, well, clearly that has been observed by the clerk of the course. I had a quick chat with Jeroen Steenhuis, by the way, at the start of the day, just to ask 1 or 2 questions about how the cars were going to be gridded up for tomorrow's start of the race. He didn't tell me anything about the Iberian Supercar Championship, by the way. The fact that they would be wedged in between the GTs and the TCEs tomorrow, but that will be the way of things, and there'll be an orange flag displayed 2 hours in to indicate the end of their race, but the continuation of the 24 hours of Barcelona.
They might get mixed up with the 992 class, I think.
Very likely.
Those Porsche Cup cars, yeah.
And you made the point earlier on, Joe, when we were chatting in the green room, that, you know, yes, they're in a separate race. That doesn't stop them interfering with the 24 hours. They could cause a code 60 if there's an incident within their event.
That's interfering with the championship as well.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah. I can see. I mean, we're in the entertainment business.
Oh, yeah.
And the more cars, the merrier. And a 2-hour race within a 24-hour race, yeah, I can see that. But if you're a competitor, and it's a bit of an arguable point here, if you're a competitor that, you know what? Let's just wait and see, Johnny. Let's not try and sort of bring that on, and let's hopefully everyone will behave themselves. And it might be a point, in fact, with 4.5 minutes remaining in this qualifying session, things begin to heat up. It might, let's just mention that we are going to set the GT cars away first, then there's going to be a gap, then the supercar grid, and then the TCE grid. They are going to get mixed together in those first 2 hours, eventually, obviously. But by the time we do have that overlap and that cars getting mixed in together, the race will have settled and drivers won't be as, frantic in their approach to getting past one another. I say that with tongue-in-cheek.
Indeed. A terrific time just been put in by the young star from Argentina, by the way, Nicolas Varrone, who takes part in the European Le Mans Series, a man from Buenos Aires. He's only 21, but he's just popped in with a 147.971. He is silver rated because he's not won any championships yet, but this kid's going to be a star. He's already a star, actually, but I think there's some big titles on the way to him in the next 5 to 10 years. And car 22, well, briefly shown as third, now back down to fourth, and that is because Manuel Lauck has just popped up in the 23 Huber Racing Porsche to do a 149.834, not quicker than Varrone, but when you link them together to produce a 2-lap average, which is what we have right now, Lauck goes ahead, or Huber go ahead of the WTM Racing team, Wochenspiegel team, Monschau. Poulsen Motorsport benefiting from Christian Poulsen's effort in qualifying 1. Now with Christopher Nygaard, his long-time co-driver, he's just done a 149.927. So the BMW M4 of Poulsen Motorsport, the Danish crew, going briefly second, back down to third, because Alfred Renauer has just gone across the line, doing a 149.405, which will put the Herbert Motorsport Porsche back to the top. So we've got a 149.4 average, 149.9 average for ST Racing's BMW, a 150.5 for Poulsen Motorsport's BMW. They're actually quite big gaps when you look at them like that, but there's very little changing in the individual lap times within this session, Joe.
I really like this format of aggregate times across the two drivers, across the three drivers by the time we get into the next session. Nicolas Varrone, by the way, met him recently at Watkins Glen when he put the LMP3 car he was driving on the pole position for that class in the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. So he really is a one to watch. That's a name to keep an eye on. Lars Viljoen in the Duta Racing Audi, currently 7th overall. Lars has the accolade of being ran at a motor race by both myself and Trustwell. He was in that Super Cup race at Spa a few years ago. Yeah, he was one of the about 74 drivers we had across 12 or 13 cars.
Would he use the word accolade, do you think?
Absolutely.
Attached with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We had a ball.
No, I'm sure you did.
Great. He hasn't done much racing recently, so I'm looking forward to catching up on him, with him and seeing just what he's done. But it's great to see him out here, and he's not a stranger to the 24 Series. He's done a couple of races with us over the years. Rick Broik is now at the wheel of the Red Camels Porsche 992, the 911 GT3 Cup. Is currently second in the 992 class, and Rick, arguably the superstar in that car, former winner of the Sebring 12 hours in the GTD class, winner of the Daytona 24 hours in the GTD class, and interesting to see how they've slotted Rick in second. That's a bit clever, that, because Rick has got the less worn tyres in this second run, so I can see why they've done that. Battle of the Species, I think, in 992 is Red Camel goes into battle with the Red Ant Racing Porsches, the 904 and the 903, currently just behind them in the class, currently third and fourth in class for both of those cars. Kobe de Bruyker in the number 904, ahead of the 903 sister car of Ayrton Redont. Redont just bringing the car in the pits. Bruyker is now in the pits. In fact, Johnny, with only seconds remaining, that's pretty much where we are with this second segment of qualifying for GTs coming to a close. Alfred Reinauer making his way back to the pits, no doubt, as well.
So the times that have been most impressive in this session, certainly Verone, but who's got, well, anywhere close to him? He's in the 147s just. There's then no one else in the 148s from this session. 149 from Alfred Reinauer, he did a 49.4. A 149.9 from Bryson Morris in the ST Racing BMW. There was also another 149 further down the order. Sven Herberger for Phoenix Racing and the Audi. Just caught sight of Jamer Garcia. Now, if that's the same Jamer Garcia who's done the 24H Series racing previously, it looks like his earlier Creventic event was actually the Dubai 24 Hours in 2008. And he hasn't raced with Creventic or indeed much high-profile stuff since then. So perhaps coming back after something like 14 years away, if it's the same Jamer Garcia. I would imagine it's a fairly common name, though, here in Spain. So might be someone very new to the 24H series. We'll try and find that out for you. Checkered flag is out, though, and it is the 001 and the letters ALF, or ALR, to be more specific, for Alfred Reinauer. Topping the session after 2 slices of it. So Herbert Motorsport still at the top, courtesy of Ralph Bones 149.3, and now Alfred Reinauer's 149.405. Puts the 91 car top of the current standings for the grid tomorrow, ahead of the ST Racing BMW M4 for Bryson Morris, who's just done that time. Samantha Tan was out in the earlier session, remember. We'll wait to see. Probably going to be Nick Whitmer in the closing of the 3 sessions. 150.522 from Christopher Nygaard in the number 14 BMW M4 of Denmark for Poulsen Racing. Then Shane Lewis for CP Racing's Mercedes. He did a 150.007 to keep CP Racing well and truly in the mix. The third row provisionally will be WTM, courtesy of gold rated with the FIA and therefore pro Daniel Kylvitz, did a 147.971. Now that was Veroni, wasn't it? Oh, it's been changed to Kylvitz now, because the next session is live. It was a Veroni time, though, 5th fastest. Thomas Mullens just done the 151.726 in the Mercedes to go 6th fastest. Then it was the Uber Racing Porsche, driven by Manuel Lauk, 7th fastest. Jutta Racing's Audi R8, 8th quickest. 9th fastest for Dynamic Motorsports Porsche, 10th Vortex V8's Vortex 1.0, that's the GTX provisional pole sitter ahead of a fellow GTX car, Lamborghini Huracan, Super Trofeo and Lippert Motorsport. Ramdan Motorsport, top of the 992 Porsche Brigade. Another GT3 car is the Phoenix Racing Audi 13th. Then lots of 992s in the provisional order. Red Camel, the 2 Red Ant Racing Porsches and Bapora Motorsports 991. And a little further down, 17th fastest for Bapora as mentioned. RD Signs just behind that. HRT Performances Porsche 19th quickest, that was Antti Burri in the car last. Seb Lajour Racing by Duvo Racing, currently 21st, ahead of Villi Motorsports Porsche, HRT Motorsports Porsche Cup car, the 2 360 Racing Team GT3 Cup cars, and finally the E2P Racing Porsche 911 GT3. Some reaction from qualifying 2, here's Andy.
Yeah, Alfred Reinauer, good job there, kept it to the top.
Yeah, thanks, it was not too bad. I had to try to avoid the track limits, and this was pretty well, and time was not bad. So now let's see what Robbie can do in quali 3, and hopefully we are on the top after this one.
Let's hope so. Ralph told me the car was a bit down on power.
For me it was pretty good, so didn't have much problems, so maybe one time a track limit, but in the end car is good and it's well balanced, so it's all fine.
Okay, fingers crossed for you, and very emotional weekend, of course, for the twins. It was 10 years ago, almost to the day, that their father died in a road accident. So it's a special weekend for them.
quite rightly pointed out there, Andrew, and yeah, thank you for the reminder. So tough, I'm sure, this time of year, and particularly when you're marking 5 and 10 years. So our thoughts with the Renault family. But they're doing what their father would have wished here in terms of topping the session.
Their dad would have seen,
yeah,
what are you doing? Get on with it.
Crack on,
he
boys.
He would, absolutely. He's a true racer, isn't he? You know, their dad, and the twins are carrying on the very spirit of that. And like I said, Johnny, I'm going to say this a lot. Their look going into, I'm going to stop saying it tomorrow because I'll only hex their race. That look has got to change. They've had a nightmare, very, very un-Herbert year so far as 2022 been for them. And we've got a green flag, so the session is underway for the third and final segment of this qualifying session. But that car there has got to be, the 91 Porsche has got to have a good run this weekend. It's got to. It's got to. It's not. We're going to have to do it all
said
again.
It enough now.
We're going to have to do 2022 all again if they don't.
But what I will say is that, you know, more and more the 24-hour series becomes attractive to different teams, and Herbert have almost been an ever-present for the last 5, 6, 7 seasons. I won't say they've had it easy because they just know how to boss certain races, but they've got lots of new competitors now, and all of a sudden, you know, their strategist is thinking, right, what are we doing? What's everybody else doing? And not only as the new teams arrive, they're also bringing their own way to tackle a 24-hour race, and they're having to adjust.
Yeah, I mean, look at 2 years ago, Mark Lemmer's Barwell Motorsport was the overall winner here.
Yeah.
And Mark had said it took us a while to get our head around the regulations for the 24H series. Slightly different. The refueling rules, where you don't refuel at your pit apron, you go into a refueling section. That can throw up lots of anomalies and disadvantages and advantages. And then he said he struggled at first. I think that's the correct term he used. He struggled at first to get his head around the Code 60 rules. Because unlike a full course caution, like the kind of which you see in the US, where it's quite straightforward, you just pit and top up that fuel and stretch that window. It's all about where you are on the track when that Code 60 comes out, because you can be, it's to do with the refueling. However, that regulation with regards to refueling has been changed now, hasn't it?
Yes. Now, you're going to ask me how it's been changed, aren't you?
Yeah, we're going to
Fortunately, I can tell you about a moment that we've had before we get to that. Was it the Phoenix Audi? Pierre Caffer, if it is. No, it's Earhart. It's Elliot Earhart in it. Really hanging the tail out of his number 18 Phoenix Racing Audi. So that's interesting for me, is that Phoenix haven't therefore utilised Caffer yet.
Yeah.
They've now that might have been a decision made within the camp to say, well, Pierre hasn't got anything to learn from qualifying, really. What's the point in putting a really quick guy in there? Yes, for bragging rights, but how important is a pole position really in a 24 hours? Those that stand to gain a lot more are the 3 AM drivers, or to put it right, 2 AMs and an AM Plus.
Well, they're the slowest GT3 car at this point. And I think that decision not to use Pierre Caffer is got to be based on the fact that they use Michael Doppelmayr, who by his own admission is certainly not the quickest driver in that car.
No.
He surrounds himself with superstars. So that's possibly why, if they're going to use Michael and give Michael a run in qualifying and let Michael contribute, he's the AM driver, and why not? 24 hours, it's not about how quick you go over 3 laps here in an aggregate of 3. It's about how you get an aggregate of 24 hours around this track. So I can kind of see that. It's not an optimized tactic for sure. If you were optimizing the tactic, you'd have your quickest driver, and it's arguable that Pierre Caffer is indeed the quickest driver in that number 18 Phoenix Audi. There's no question.
Well, he's a former Audi LMP1 driver, for goodness sake. I think he won the Sebring 12 hours, didn't he, when it was in the early 2010s, so mightily experienced, the German, and he will be putting in the hours during the race, probably in the overnight stints as well. What we don't do at the end of the session, even if we have GT3 cars slower than other classes, as I say that actually, that's bumped the Phoenix Audi up to 4th So an indication of how hard Elliot Earhart is pushing, just on a 149.7. I was about to say, if we will have GT3 cars further down the pack, they won't be reordered to all be put at the front. If you haven't qualified your GT3 car ahead of some Porsche Cup cars, for example, well, you'll have to start midfield and do the jostling for the first few laps.
We're just now getting into the situation where the third qualifying lap is coming in.
Yeah.
So we're seeing the timing screen. If you are following this online, you're seeing the timing screen looking very askew there with GT3 cars way down the order. Just wait a few minutes for their third lap to come into play, and then you'll see them moving up, and we'll have a GT3 lineup invariably at the top of the screen.
However, Joe, we now have a red flag for the first time, and that is hopefully not because of a serious incident, more because the car that has gone off at the final corner is in a very precarious position, and therefore will need to be retrieved. I can't see any damage on said Porsche. It's a Porsche Cup car, and just trying to work out exactly which number it is. It might even be better for me to look out the window.
It's a good point, actually.
Just out
just
of my
to
view.
Our right, isn't it?
Yeah, it's to the right of our commentary position, and I'm loath to press too hard on our desk in front for fear of virtually bringing all of the screens down that we precariously set up about half an hour before going on air. Literally,
Qualifying's all about being on the edge, Johnny.
it is.
You leaning across that desk was
qualifying
very much
for us
on the
very
edge.
nearly didn't happen because all of the screens were smashed on the floor, but Joe managed to rescue the
That's an
situation.
exaggeration of what happened.
Yeah, one of them did actually fall on Joe's head, but
That's
he hasn't
even more of an
sounded
exaggeration.
any different so far.
The Snatch tractor is to the rescue and will haul that Porsche out of the gravel trap. It's on the outside of the final turn here at Barcelona, and a very fast acceleration zone coming out of the new section of track there. I say new, it's been around for a few years now. Those little sort of Mickey Mouse chicanes that totally destroyed the track, but that's just a matter of opinion. That's my opinion. Other opinions are available. But that final turn there has become, for some of our classes, a pure acceleration zone where you just floor the car and you are absolutely flat chat through it. Some of the classes, a little bit more tippy-toe on the car, probably on a bit of an edge, and I would suggest the 992 class of car will be in that category of being on the edge through that final turn. And it doesn't take long, not much runoff, maybe a car's width, and then you're in the gravel, and the gravel doing its job, the car way off, coming into contact with any barrier. And as you said, Johnny, the car looking perfectly intact and no visible signs of any apparent damage. Of course, from this angle, we can't see whether the car may have a puncture or anything, but at the moment, we're dragging the car back onto the track through the gravel. It's not buried too deeply, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. And we should be able to get this final section of qualifying resuming. 7 minutes and 14 seconds on the clock. Tyre temp will be dropping off. It'll be down to the drivers to get those tyres back up. So that really does put the pressure on these third and final drivers. Some of the teams, for instance, I'll give you an idea. Robert Reinauer in the Herbert Motorsport Porsche, Alfred Nielsen in the Poulsen Motorsport BMW, Charles Espenlaub in CP Racing's Mercedes, and Stefano Monaco in the Dynamic Motorsport Porsche, yet to put in their third lap time. So they are out of sync with what's happening out there at the moment. There's quite a few of the 992 runners as well. Only 3 of the 992 runners have posted a third lap time. Sam de Jonge in the Red Ant Racing car 903. He's okay, he's got his third lap in. David Sarney in the Sebleju Racing by Duvo Porsche. He's got his third lap in and lies second in class. And Bob Herber in the HRT Performance Porsche, they are third in class at the moment. We've got a couple of 991 cars in the race as well. That's Sabino De Castro from the Vili Motorsport by EB Motors. They are currently 10th overall. And the other 991 Porsche is the E2P Racing Porsche of Antonio Sanero. They are 13th overall. But still, what is that? That's half the field, yet to put in a third lap time. We've got that car at the gravel as well.
Yeah,
Yay.
and it took all the other cars to head into the pit lane for me to fully identify. What I should know is the livery of 360 Racing Team, and it's Georgios Frankoulis, the Brazilian driver, who has done one Porsche Super Cup race this year with ID Racing, raced at the Red Bull Ring in support of the Austrian Grand Prix. So certainly high-level Porsche competitor. Only started racing actually, well, at this kind of level and also within GT3 Cup Brazil 3 years ago, 2019, 34 years old from Sao Paulo, as he heads through turns 2 and 3 and around that tricky spot 3 and 4, particularly hard on the Hankook tyres because they're long-lasting corners. 3 just goes on, and you've got to be very, very patient before applying the throttle again. Hoffa Racing, the driver that has just stepped out of...
Alex
Is
Prince.
Alex?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he was in earlier on, wasn't he? He hasn't just got out of that car.
No.
And therefore, who...
It's Max Bartle.
It's Max Bartle, yeah. Who was in or will remain in the car, I would expect, for the second phase of the session. Clock stopped with 7 minutes and 14 seconds remaining. The clock has stopped because this is a qualifying session. If it had been free practice earlier on in the day, normally when a red flag is shown in free practice, the clock just continues to tick by so that we don't lose too much time in the schedule. But unfair to take qualifying minutes away from drivers. So, yeah, well, that will be paused, and I think there's just about enough flexibility in the day, even though we started qualifying a little late, and the session is going to restart. We've just got word in 30 seconds' time. So we'll see how many takers there are. 927 hasn't yet made it back to the pits, but was put back onto the track. So Georgios Frangoulis will need to work his way back to the pit lane at a reduced pace. He'll have to come into the pit lane, is my understanding, because we're under a red flag, and wait for the session to restart.
That change in code 60, I did remember. However, I've been reminded by our colleague John Hindhoff, who, if you're staying tuned for the support races, John will be covering the support races coming up after this qualifying session. And he's reminded me that even if you are in the pit lane when the code 60 is thrown, you're then only allowed to take 50% of the fuel. This might be a little bit different. What that means is when you came across the pit line and under green, you stayed under green in the pits, even though out on track it was code 60. However, it's different now. However, throw in the fact that the fueling area is at the beginning of the pit lane. You come in, and the first thing you do, so while you are fueling, that is when it's going to go from green to purple, and I'm not sure if you're mid-fueling.
Yep.
Are you then restricted to 50%? Or is it after you've come out of the fueling and just before you... I'm adding in...
Let's say you get to 75% refueling and you go purple.
Yeah.
There's no taking it back again, is there?
Go, right, mate, you've got 75%.
No, I think you're committed then. So let's... Well, yeah, I'm sort of making the rules up now, but I would suggest that there is a point of that refueling process where you then can't put 50% in, as in you're at 75 or indeed north of that, north of 50. It's an interesting change of rule. When does that kick in, I wonder? And particularly as we're at a track where fueling comes first before the full service after that. The Wochenspiegel team, Monschau Ferrari, very nearly ran into the back of a car there, which might well have been the sister 360 Racing team, Porsche. But there is some damage, certainly to some trim on the front splitter of the Georgios Frangoulis 360 Racing Porsche, 360 Racing Team Porsche, number 927. So they've, I think, taken a few bits of trim off just to make sure that the gravel that has been scooped up can be released fairly easily. So old lower portion of splitter detached, new one on, and the car hopefully can be sent back out into the session. Down the inside for track position will go the 54 Porsche, which is a GT3 car. That's the dynamic motorsport car of Stefano Monaco, and he was grateful there that one of the slower Porsches, very much in inverted commas, because none of the cars in this session are going slowly, but a GT3 car can generally corner better than a Cup car that doesn't have as much downforce, and it was able to gobble that up pretty swiftly. And now a clear road in front of Monaco, heading down into turn 5. Rattling the curbs there. Escaping into the distance is the WTM Ferrari, and that 488 is now in the hands of Daniel Kylevitz. So we talked about Nicholas Veroni and the great time that he'd put in. Well, Kylevitz at the moment isn't able to go as fast as the Argentinian, but Kylevitz, rated as gold, has done a 149.339. That's brought the Wochenspiegel Team Monschau Ferrari 488, Andrew Marriott's pick at the start of the session, remember, right to the top, Joe Bradley.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised as well. I'm with Andrew on that. The 22 Ferrari has been the fastest car on many a racetrack, and that continues to be the case here. Kylevitz well underway. 1 minute 50.427 is the aggregate time. Kylvitz's time 49.3. Not quite as quick as the second. And there's Robert Reinauer. The 91 Porsche with Robert Reinauer at the wheel finally gets to put in its third qualifying time. So that knocks the aggregate down to 149.5, 7/10 quicker than the next car, which is the 22 Ferrari there.
And there's a bit more than I would have expected when you lump all those 3 times together and divide by 3. So yes, it's over half a second that the Herbert Motorsport Porsche guys have in their back pocket. But the Ferrari, without a doubt, should be keeping that Porsche honest during the race. Down towards turn 5 it will go again in the colours that have been resplendent on, well, as many as 2 Ferraris in the past around the Nürburgring Nordschleife. I'm sure they've still got 2 Ferraris in their possession. And this car historically has been run by Rinaldi Racing. I think it probably still is, because Nicholas Veroni drives for Rinaldi Racing in the European Le Mans Series. So even though, you know, it's badged as WTM Racing, Andrew Marriott, well, it's got Rinaldi badge on the back of it, so there you go. That completes my thought. So it's a Rinaldi car, very Italian-sounding German team, by the way.
That's the team underneath it, yeah. All the personnel and the engineers at Rinaldi Racing, who are very, very renowned in running Ferraris.
Yeah. So through this final sector of the lap now will go Kylevitz. Charles Espenlaub in the CP Racing Mercedes. 150.290 is the average, but he's just done a 150.2. So right on the money, really. And one thing to be said for the CP Racing guys, again, cracking average pace there, if you know what I mean. You know, consistency. 150.6 from driver 1, 150.0 from driver 2, 150.2 from driver 3, who is Charles Espenlaub. And down towards the first corner will go Robert Reinauer, nipping by the Vortex 1.0 of Lucas Lassière, car number 701. And the Vortex still top of the shop in GTX. GTX contains 2 Vortex, in fact, and the 2 Lamborghini Huracans, one from the RD Science, the Lithuanian squad, Ciliar Racing team, for Paulius Pascavicius currently, and then it's Jean-Francois, or John Bruno, for Lippert Motorsport in car 710, third in that division.
The Vortex going really quickly, isn't it? It's great to see Vortex back as ever. Stalwart team, stalwart car to be seen. We wish them well in the race. I know they're pretty adept at facing adversity in these long distance races. Let's hope they don't have too much adversity to face over the next couple of days. But currently on the pole in GTX, as you said, Johnny, it's Sam de Jonge in the Red Ant Racing Porsche 992, the 903 car, currently at the top of the timing screens. And there, the battle of the species. It's a Red Ant on pole, and it's a red camel alongside on the front row of the 992 grid. Luc Broikers, brother of Rick, son of Evo, sharing the car. It's a family affair at Red Camel. And our good friend and colleague, Paul Truswell, doing the strategy with Red Camel again. And they're in a bit of a Red Ant sandwich at the moment, with Arnold Neveling at the wheel of the 904, currently third in 992. Now, the 992 class cars are down in 13th, 15th and 16th. That's first, second and third, with the GTX of Jean-Francois Bruno, the Lippert car, in amongst the 992 Cup cars for pace. Just noticed the Hofer car of Max Partel going slightly quicker, Johnny, and getting the car up to 8th as the checkered flag flies. with Robert Reinauer in the Herbert car. The 91 Porsche is back.
Yeah, because they're now locked into position. I would have said the only one really that could nick pole position from them being the WTM Racing Ferrari, but Carl Witzbro already brought that into the fueling area and now into pit lane proper, so they're not going to go any quicker either. He did get the time down because he did the absolute best session time, a 1:48.8, still about a second slower though than the kid from Argentina, Nicolas Varone, but did actually whittle the gap down to half a second between Herbert and WTM Racing on the averages. But that's not close enough, nothing like it. And Herbert Motorsport will get pole position because Alfred Nielsen's just pitted for Poulsen Motorsport in the BMW M4. Charles Espenlaub for CP Racing and their Mercedes as well. So here is confirmation, although of course it remains provisional until after the post-session checks have been done. But all the times are now in, and Herbert Motorsport on course for a pole position, 1:49.155. as the latest time to be set, but it's an average of 1:49.3. An average for WTM Racing's Ferrari at 1:50.257. From Poulsen Motorsport, a 1:50.2 as their three-driver average for the BMW M4. Then a Mercedes from CP Racing, Charles Espenlaub closing things out for the American crew. Canadian, fellow North Americans, of course, but north of the border for ST Racing, and Stephen Haghani and the BMW M4 GT3 going 5th fastest there. Dynamic Motorsports Porsche for the Italian squad, 6th quickest. Uber Racing's Porsche number 23, 7th fastest, and Hoffa Racing 8th quickest with their Merc, the AMG GT3. Next up, 9th fastest for Jutta Racing, and the first of a couple of Audis from the Lithuanian squad and also from Phoenix Racing. Phoenix did not use Pierre Caffer during qualifying, and that would have had a massive impact, but I think that was a deliberate ploy to make sure their AM drivers got plenty of qualifying track time. 11th quickest and the best GTX car is the Vortex V8 for Lucas Lazier. There are two Vortex, more on the second one in a second. Super Trofeo, the Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo for second fastest in GTX from RD Science Cilia Racing team. Red Ant Racing will top their class, which is the 992 iteration of Porsche 911 GT3 Cup cars. Luke Breukers, the final one to close things out there in car 909. Lippert Motorsports Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo was third fastest in GTX, ahead of the second of the Red Ant Racing cars. In 17th position, Bapora Motorsports Porsche. Bapora also have a 992 Gen Cup car, so 17th overall for them. Seb Lajou Racing by Duvo Racing of Luxembourg, 18th quickest. Then Rabdan Motorsport of the United Arab Emirates, car 977, 19th. Vili Motorsport by Ebi Motors, the first of a couple of cars, 20th and 21st places. 360 Racing team in there in 21st. Then the fourth and final GTX car, which is the second Vortex V8, Philippe Bonnel in the closing stages there. HRT Performance for their Porsche of Germany, number 928, was 23rd. And finally, of Spain at their home race, E2P Racing, doing an average of 1:56.098 to close out the 26-car lineup in the GT part of the race. So, straight to Andrew Marriott after 3 lots of qualifying. Andy.
Yeah, great team effort here. One very quick, experienced amateur driver and the fastest racing twins in the business put it on pole.
Yeah, it's nice to be on pole for second time now in a row. But honestly, the Ferrari looks really good. They set a really good lap time in the second outing. Yeah, gonna be an interesting race for us. At the moment, we are happy to be on pole for tomorrow, and yeah, we will see. Cross fingers.
You've had your problems this season. You sorted it all out now?
I hope, yeah. Especially the last couple of races were really shit for us. So hope bad luck is gone now and look forward.
Well, the team has won the race 3 times before. You've won it twice. Your co-drivers won it 3 times, haven't they?
Yeah. Hopefully they win it now for 4th time. I won't do it 3 times now as well, but we will see. It's going to be a long race, a good competition for sure, and a bit of luck always.
Brilliant effort. Well done.
Thank you.
Robert Reinauer together with Ralph Bone in the opening session and Alfred Reinauer in the middle part of the afternoon did a fantastic effort to link them all together. 1:48.3, 1:48.4, 1:48.1 gives a total time of a 1:49.3 as an average. But it'll be Porsche and Ferrari. They're arch rivals on the front row within the GT category for the 2022 version of the 24 Hours of Barcelona.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that three-driver format, but I'm sorry to announce to everybody, Herbert are back.
Yes.
These guys won here last year, 1-2 overall, and they know how to win 24-hour races.
Indeed, they know how to win this particular 24-hour race as well. The Hankook Trofeo Fermi Velez is back again for another outing. Race tomorrow, but let's deal with matter in hand, because there's night practice to come this evening as well, and a 90-minute session, in fact, so that everyone can get used to the darkness that will fall pretty severely at this time of year around the Circuit de Catalunya, Barcelona. So night practice beginning on track at 8:30, but we will be live Central European summertime 5 minutes before that. So 8:25 local. You can do the calculations if you're elsewhere around the world. We look forward to your company for that. But for the meantime, thank you very much to all our staff at 022 for keeping us on air. Andrew Marriott and Diana Binks down in the pits. And from Joe Bradley and Johnny Palmer, we will see you later for night practice.